Very interactive.
It was really very good.
Quite good.
Yes, sir, quite good.
A very enjoyable experience.
Great seminar with John, sir.
It was quite exciting.
It's a great experience.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm John Weber. I am a professor of animation at the Savannah College of Art and Design in the state of Georgia, United States. And I was a former Disney animator with Walt Disney Feature Animation for about 10 years. I started out with a 2-year degree in a community college, just studying advertising design. I went to the California Institute of the Arts and studied in the character animation program for 3 years there. That school was started by Walt Disney. And the purpose was to gather all forms of different art, dance, theater, put it all under one roof, and inspire each other. So I was there for 3 years. I did an internship on the animated feature Catstone Dance, and then I was hired right off the bat with Walt Disney in 1994, and I worked until 2004. I started off on Fantasia 2000. I don't know if you guys remember the Pines of Rome sequence with the flying whales. There's a lot of the whales, the eyeballs, the seagulls, things like that. That's what I started out on, and then I took a rough in-between test and was promoted to rough in-betweener on the character of Pocahontas with Glenn Keane. I worked on Hercules with Andreas Deja on that film. And then I moved to Disney Orlando facility, and I started being a full-time animator on the character of Mushu in Milan. And I worked on Kenai the Bear for Brother Bear, did Lilo for Lilo and Stitch, John Henry, and we started digital training in the computer. And the day I sat down to do my very first animation scene is when Disney decided to shut down the whole facility. And so a lot of us were wondering, well, what are we going to do? I had a great offer to work on the last Star Wars film with Industrial Light and Magic. I had a great interview with Pixar, but a lot of us, me and my buddies, we started our own studio called Project Firefly. We wanted to stay in Florida. And we worked on a Curious George movie and did about 24% of that film. And then we lasted for about 3 years, and quite honestly, I learned what not to do in business. So I really liked doing my own business. I learned a lot. I became a different person almost, but it didn't work out. So then, I have a family. I have 4 children, and so I was kind of like, what are we going to do? Do I go back to California? It's very expensive there. And I was at Full Sail College for about 9 months. And ultimately, I landed a job at SCAD in the animation department, and I've been teaching animation there for almost 8 years. I really enjoy the department. The time off gives me some time to work on my own projects. I've been a student as well. But that's been keeping me busy for quite a while. I still teach a lot of 2D animation. When I first started off, we only had about 2 resources in animation. And that was, I don't know if you guys know of the book, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, The Illusion of Life, which is kind of a history book for the most part. And then we had another book called Cartoon Animation by Preston Blair. And those are pretty much the only 2 resources. And then we just did a lot of tests, and we added some animators that would help us out. And we just did test after test, and a lot of trial and error and a lot of failing. But now things are so different. You've got your school that you're in, there's SCAD, there's many schools in America, there's Richard Williams' Animation Survival Kit, his DVD series, Anim School, Anim Squad, iAnimate, a lot of resources to help out, so things are changing really fast. It's very exciting. One of the things that is exploding here in America, and particularly even in our school at SCAD, is what we call motion media. You guys might call it something different, broadcast. It's a lot of commercial work where there is no separation between 2D or 3D or puppeting or anything like that. It is all just animation. So you might get Red Bull energy drink wants a 2D commercial, or you might get Sherman-Williams paint company wants a 3D a 3D commercial. And so I think of these little studios in motion media like SWAT teams. They just kind of go in and they tear down the animation pipeline, they build it back up to whatever the needs are at the time. So it's kind of an exciting thing. And then there's video games now. You've got augmented reality, virtual reality. So we're really standing at an unprecedented time. And who knows where it's going to go. So what I wanted to talk about was everything really for an animator still comes back to the 12 principles of animation. I'm sure you guys are familiar with those. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure, Vineet, on your end, if you can show the principles quick guide.
I do that.
Okay.
Okay, done.
Okay. That little thing that I used to hang that up in my cubicle at work, and I would look at all of my animation scenes, and I would check, am I missing something of all these different 12 principles? It all comes back to that. But one thing it really doesn't touch on that the first-time animators struggle with in my class is a good sense of basic acting. Generally, the first-time animator struggles. We want to over-animate everything. We move the character around too much. I used to talk to a supervising animator, Mark Henn, who did Milan, Princess Jasmine. He was the fastest animator in the business. He would draw very, very loose. He had great help. Not a lot of details on his character, but he used to talk about the KISS system, which is KISS. And he said it was basically stood for keep it simple, stupid. A lot of times the animators at Disney, they would say, they look at an animation scene, and they would say, oh, that's a one or a two pose scene. And so I would be really confused when I first starting because I knew that there was eyes were blinking, mouth was moving, you'd have hands waving. There's a lot of movement, there's a lot of different keys, a lot of poses. So what are they talking about when they're saying one or two poses? And what they were saying was what Eric Goldberg taught me. Eric Goldberg did the genie in Aladdin. And he said if you played a soap opera, maybe you recorded it for about 4 hours, and you played it back at half the speed, you would find that people generally would act in a certain pose. So if I'm sitting here, and I'm talking, and I'm saying blah, 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 and then I put it over to here, and then maybe stand up, there might be a lot of keys in this movement. There might be a lot of keys in this movement. There might be a lot of keys in me standing up. But basically, if I was to make a comic book of that shot, it would be here, here, and then maybe a stand-up pose. So they're animating within those major poses. And Eric Goldberg called those story poses. And the jargon for animators would get really mixed up because you would have keys, you would have key poses, keyframes, then you'd hear the word extremes, you'd hear the word story poses, then you'd hear the word breakdowns, and then you'd hear in-betweens. And so it got kind of messed up with the jargon and how to talk about these things. Particularly in 2D animation, we would look at, and I'm not sure, Vineet, if you can show, there's one called Snoops, Milk Call Snoops Too Soft.
Okay, fine.
Just show that scene real quick. When you guys watch that scene, I want you to look in the upper right corner, and there's a little chart at the corner.
Yeah, we are running it twice. So this
Okay.
is second time.
Then try the Glen Keane one with the Beast.
Okay.
Are you guys seeing, when you look at the visual, the chart in the corner, those little numbers?
Yes, we can see
Okay, good. Okay, those charts, those were called timing charts, and 2D animators would use them all the time. Some animators, like James Baxter, Milt Hall, their charts were very, very accurate. That basically measures from one key to the next, the drawings that are in between, and the spacing of those drawings. And so they were, some of them were very accurate, but now Glenn Keane, the beast that you saw, he's a very powerful animator. He animates with strong emotions. He doesn't spend a lot of time on his charts. And he found that that part of the process was very frustrating for him. And some of the people that followed him up were also very frustrated because he didn't take the time as much to identify some of the big keys and the breakdowns and things. But those are really important. Let me see here. What I always do is I spend a lot of time on my shots. I work on the major story poses for hours. And I get those drawings down correct. And then I might start breaking the action down more with like maybe an anticipation or maybe a shift of weight. And I start adding those keys in there. And then I'll go and add breakdowns, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then I add in the in-betweens. And it's just kind of like working in layers as you kind of go through. But I like to think in terms of the story poses. And Glenn Keane taught me to kind of find those drawings, and put a little star and circle it up in the upper right corner to kind of identify what are the most important drawings in the shot, so that everybody else following you along the process could know what was happening in the shot. So one of the things I try and get my students to look at is to identify what are those story poses. And then I ask them, now what are the keys? And then I'll ask them, what is the breakdown? And usually they don't understand what the breakdown is. Can you show Vineet a quick time video of the Sleeping Beauty one with the 3 fairies?
Okay, fine.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. You know what? I'm sorry. Go to the Goldberg's key story poses.
Fine.
Do you see that drawing there of him stepping over a flower?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good example of what story poses are. So if you were to make a comic book or a storyboard, those are the ones that you need to look for. I hope that kind of helps illustrate what I'm saying. So now let's go to the Sleeping Beauty video. You need to find a point. You don't want to animate the whole turkey in one bite. It gets very overwhelming to think of, gosh, the mouth is moving, the head is squashed and stretching, the eyes are moving. It's very intimidating. But if you can find the story pose, and then you can think, you know what, there's not a lot of action going on. You try to think of the invisible arcs that are happening. Maybe it's a figure 8, or maybe the head just kind of moves, you know, as an under arc, back and forth. You're not really moving around that a lot. And once you kind of pull back and you realize, hey, you know, I can do a bouncing ball. I can squash and stretch a bouncing ball. Well, that's the character's head. If I could get him to animate on a plane and go on an arc and see those arcs, you start to take things down like you're not eating the whole turkey in one bite. You're just kind of going about it in a piecemeal in different levels. So if you look at the Sleeping Beauty video, let me pull that up myself.
Which one? There are 2 videos. One is
try the one I think that says new.
Yeah, that's one I'm running. Fine.
Okay.
हेलो, आज मेरे यहाँ पे पहला सेमिनार था। आज जॉन सर के साथ हमारे सेमिनार अटेंड करा है। इसमें आज स्टॉप एनिमेशन और कैरेक्टर एनिमेशन के बारे में बहुत अच्छी बातें करने चलने को मिली है।
The workshop was very informative, and I felt very lucky to have a guy from Disney Animation Studios, which was one of the best studios in the world. So he taught me a lot, and it was very interactive also, and it was overall a very enjoyable experience.
Well, today we had a seminar with John Weber in Skype. Well, it was the first time we had a Skype chat with a person who have worked in Disney for 10 years. So it was quite good. He told us about many aspects in animation and it was helpful. Like there were new things that he taught to us, not like everyday things. So yeah, it was quite exciting and I hope we can have this type of seminars in future too. Thanks.
It was really great to learn sketching, how they do John Weber, and about sketching, how they do. It was really very good. I learned about sketching. And about 2D art, the way he's doing in Walt Disney was really very great. I really like his work in Walt Disney. I also want to do sketching like him.
Today we had a great seminar with John sir, who has experience in Disney, and we learned about the industry, how they work, how they, and he shared his experience with us. It was a quite good and a great experience. Thank you.
आज हम लोग ने जॉन सर की वर्कशॉप लगाई फर्स्ट टाइम, तो काफ़ी अच्छा लगा. उनको काफ़ी एक्सपीरियंस है और उनकी ड्राइंग्स बहुत अच्छी है. कभी फ्यूचर में उनके साथ काम करने का मौका मिला तो काफ़ी उनसे सीखने को मिलेगा और मैं चाहूँगी कि मेरी ड्राइंग इतनी अच्छी हो जाए और उनसे सीखने को काफ़ी कुछ मिले. थैंक यू.
आज हमारा सेमिनार था जॉन सर के साथ, जिन्होंने डिज्नी में काम किया. उन्होंने जो भी बताया स्केचिंग के बारे में, ब्रेकडाउन के बारे में, मोशन एनिमेशन के बारे में, वो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा. बहुत काम आएगा आगे जो आज उन्होंने बताया.